In today's show, Nassir Little chooses job security over the risk of a big payday. It might work out for both parties. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richman, and you are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. It's free. It's 5 days a week. Every platform you're looking for us, you're going to find us. So make it your first listen every day and tell your friends to do the same. What a show today. Today's show is not supposed to be a newsy show, and we got a very newsy show, starting with Nassir Little agreeing to a rookie contract extension that will keep him in Portland for another 4 years beyond this one. A surprising deal, to say the least, that got done on deadline day. The Blazers also fill out their final two-way spot, adding John Butler, a rangy, weird wing, to the back end of their rotation to fill out their group heading into night one of the preseason. And then today's show is supposed to be all about predictions from the national media and also myself. We're going to squeeze that in at the end of the show. We got predictions for you, kind of a look around to what other folks are saying, and then I got 5 bold ones for you. All right. Let's talk Nassir Little, though. This was the news of the day at 8:30 this morning on my telephone. Nassir Little agrees to a contract extension. I was going to put this as a footnote in the show. Hey, the rookie deadline passed, and Nassir Little didn't agree to a contract extension, and yeah, it makes sense why he didn't, and here's all the reasons why. But he did. 4 years, $28 million. Nassir Little agrees to an extension on the final day for team and players entering the final year of their rookie contracts from Nassir Little's draft class to agree to a contract extension. 4 years, $28 million, and the absolute first thing you're thinking is, where's the rest of the cash? I've been talking about this summer that I didn't think that Nas would would agree to a deal with the Blazers because, quite frankly, I thought a reasonable contract for the Blazers to offer would be something like in the $10 million range, and Nassir Little would say, I can play myself into a little bit more money than that this year. So I was thinking like 4 for 40 or 3 for 30 with an option. And then Nas's people would ask for something like 4 for 48 with an option to make it a little bit more, some incentives in there to push it over 50, 4 for 50, totally reasonable range. Start at 4 for 60 and work your way down between 60 and 40 million, meet in the middle somewhere. And that would be, why an extension would not get done. But instead, on the final day, Nassir Little 4 for 28. Let's talk about why Nas would do this first. And the very obvious one is that this is security. $28 million is a ton of money. It's a ton of money. But in the world of the NBA, where the contracts are gigantic, so gigantic that at some point we're just going to have to stop talking about how much money players make because it is becoming unrelatable in a way that it's out of control, absolutely out of control. But I guess that's the way the league and professional sports in general are headed. But like, $20 million is a ton of money. $20 million over the next 4 years is a ton of money. Life-changing, generation-changing money. I do not mean to poo-poo that. In the context of an NBA job, this isn't very much money. This is about the same level as the mid-level exception, the taxpayer mid-level exception will be over the next 2 seasons. This is mid-level. This is the small mid-level contract exception, basically for Nassir Little over the course of 4 years. But he gets $28 million. He gets guaranteed money, fully guaranteed over those 4 years. That's job security. That's a contract. That is not playing himself into a space where he might make less than this in the open market. If Nassir Little struggles this year, there's a chance that there is no $30 million. There's no over the course of 4 seasons waiting for him. That he's playing for a much smaller deal when he hits free agency. The flip side is that if he has a great year, he is going to be immediately underpaid, and he's going to be underpaid for 4 consecutive seasons. And it's a long time to be underpaid. The NBA, opportunity is not a lengthy visitor, to quote To quote people smarter than me, like this is, you just do not have that many chances to cash in as an NBA player. There was a potential for Nassir Little to have a wonderful season and end up with a big payday, which is what I assumed he would do for a variety of reasons. He hasn't been healthy. Availability has been an issue for him. He had, a truncated first year with the COVID cutoff, didn't have summer league, and then the COVID cutoff, had the COVID cutoff, didn't have that, had a break, had to come back, ended up getting, not playing in the bubble because of dehydration. Then he got COVID really badly and missed the first part of the season, and took him a while to ramp back up. And then last year he's finally getting going, and he has a shoulder injury. Like, he's just had stuff happen to him. He's had stuff happen to him in his first 3 years. Strange things, some out of his control, some just unlucky, some just he's had bumps and bruises and nicks and things like that, but got nicked up along the way is what I'm trying to say there. Like, he's had health issues. He's had some he's just had some bad luck, sort of the bad luck of timing of his life, right? All of those things coming together for him. That lack of availability has led to somewhat of a lack of production. When he was playing the best as he had in January of last year, but he had about a month of looking like a really solid NBA player, an NBA starter, hurts his shoulder. He comes back, enters training camp, and he struggled in the preseason, and he did not win the starting job. And he didn't win the starting job not because of politics or anything else other than he was clearly not the best option. I would say he was the third choice if you're ranking Josh Hart, Justice Winslow, and then Nas. I think that has a factor in him accepting this contract. If he was the starter on this team heading into night one, I do not think he accepts this contract. If you're starting in the NBA, why take the money? You're going to have this massive opportunity to seize on all these things. But I think his lack of availability in recent seasons, his lack of production early in this preseason, it led him to this. This is a team-friendly deal. No way to spin it other than that. This is really, really friendly because Nas is very likely to outplay this quickly. If he is a competent starter in the league, he outplays this. If he is a pretty good seventh man, he will outplay this contract. If he is a useful bench player, he outplays this contract. If he is not very good and he's the 9th, 10th guy on a team, but he plays every night, he's making about the right level of money. Like, he's basically being paid role player money. If he's a role player, it's fine. Like, the chances that he underperforms in this contract are so slim. He can basically only outperform it. But he gets the job security. He gets guaranteed life-changing money. He doesn't go into this year as a contract year. He doesn't have the pressure. And if he does struggle this year, he probably wasn't going to, he wasn't going to get back to this level. One thing when I was saying I was prepping to talk about how Nas, as a footnote, didn't sign a contract. Brandon Clark on Sunday evening signed a 4-year, $52 million extension. That's Brandon Clark, former Gonzaga great, who is a Memphis Grizzlies, a player who was really good as a rookie, struggled as a sophomore, had a really nice end to his third season in the league. He was a very good role player on a team that, made the Western Conference Finals, a very, very good basketball team. When he made 4 for 52, I said, there's no way Nas signs a contract because he's going to make way less money than Brandon Clark. Like, he's just been way less productive, way less to point to in terms of what he's done in the league than Clark. Like, that, okay, that's 25% or so more money than Nas is going to make. Like, that's we've started to see kind of what is a backup forward going to get in this climate. Way under that money. And even then, $28 million is significantly less than I thought that Nas would sign for. I thought the low end of what Nas would agree to is 4 for 40. Would I have done this if I'm Nassir Little? No way to know. Would I have advised him to do this if I was his people? No, I probably wouldn't have. Because I think he can outperform this contract immediately. And I would take the risk. I totally understand why he didn't. Why I'm saying the difference in I'm his people and I'm him. His agents are trying to make money, right? Like, that view, I totally understand. And from that perspective, I can see why you'd say, yeah, this is, we're going to do it this way. But for him, the job security, the knowing you're going to get your money, the know that you can, if you as long as you don't get traded, that's out of your control. But like, you're going to be in the place, you're going to be in one spot for a little while, and a chance to put down roots and a chance to have that security and that comfort and all of those things. I'm happy for Nas. Like, I'm happy for him. When a dude signs a contract, you should be happy. There is part of me that's like, go get more cash. But like, you got to be happy for folks. You got to be like, I didn't really love the Trent Watford deal at the time last year for Trent Watford, but there's no reason not to celebrate someone getting an NBA contract. A second NBA contract or a real NBA contract is hard to come by. Absolutely a cause for celebration. This is a really good deal for the Portland Trail Blazers organization. Nassir Little is very likely to be better than the money you're paying him. And when you're building a basketball team, the best way to get good is to underpay good players. And Nas, who probably has not performed at a level that would be commensurate of a larger contract, when you're negotiating contracts, you're paying for potential. The Blazers are, if Nas hits something close to what his potential will be, he zooms past the value of this contract and he becomes a massive bargain for this team, a massive bargain for him. I'm happy for Nas. It's good for the Blazers' sort of team building flexibility. It's an incredible deal for them, probably. So I think this is a rare case where both sides got what they wanted and can say that they feel good about it, for sure. Good news for Nas. Good news for Joe Cronin's Trailblazers. And we keep it moving. Nassir Little does not enter free agency this summer because he's already got himself a deal. Congrats to Nas. And, congrats to Joe Cronin. Is that who we congratulate for this? Good job, Joe. Way to negotiate a team-friendly contract. Let's talk about the other player the Blazers signed this today. They signed on Monday. You're listening to Tuesday, October 18th show. On Monday, they agreed to a two-way contract with 7-foot wing John Butler from Florida State. A 7-foot wing. Yeah, an interesting player to be sure. Let's learn a little about the new Blazers two-way guy in the second segment. But first, I want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new position can feel like it's so tough to hire. It's just a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you got the best qualified candidates available. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Here's what you do. You sign up for LinkedIn Jobs and use their simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. So Nassir Little is staying, but the Blazers also added another player to the roster on Monday evening, filling what was, at the time, the final open two-way spot in the league with big man, tall person John Butler, a surprising one-and-done player from FSU, from Florida State University. He'll turn 20 in December. Spent one season at Florida State, and then was a Pelican in summer league. Signed with the Pelicans to eventually a two-way contract, but first joined their summer league team where he lit it up, including an 8-for-8 night in summer league where he hit 6 of 6 3-pointers. Then the Pelicans briefly signed him to a two-way deal and then waived him. The idea was that he was going to join the Birmingham Squadron, join their G League team, and be part of the G League there with the Pels organization. But instead, he got himself a two-way spot, and the Blazers swooped him up. So who is John Butler other than a guy who was, a relatively productive player in a down year for FSU? FSU has churned out pros. They really, really have. It's a program that has churned out professional players, but they were not very good last year, and then they had a ton of injuries. In fact, I'm a Carolina guy. I watched them play FSU once, and Carolina was up by 38 at halftime. So I do not recall Butler being a standout because it was like 62-24 at the break. Like, FSU had a bunch of injuries that day, so it's like my one day of what would have been scouting Florida State was ruined because they got rolled in Chapel Hill. So I have watched John Butler once, do not recall it. So I actually turned to a friend of mine who is the biggest Pelicans fan I know, and I said, "Yo, who's John Butler?" They gave me the rundown on exactly who John Butler is, and the key here is that he's 7'1", and you might think, heck yeah. A big man. The Blazers desperately need a big man. They just need size up front. Their front court is so thin. He's 175 pounds at 7'1". Like, he's point guard weight. He's 40 pounds away from being a viable forward in the league. He's really skinny. He is a 7'1" wing. Shot 39% from three in college. Like I said, lit it up in summer league. Shot above 60%. He made 6 of 6 threes one time in one game in summer league. That's going to change your per game averages. But like an absolute shooter, much more of according to Sam Vecini's draft guide that I read prior to this, much more of a sort of rangy perimeter defender than he is an interior defender. He's just so skinny. He got pushed around in college. He's going to get pushed around in the pros. He's not like, he's probably a 3-and-D wing at 7'1", not like a future center at his size. Even if you just see him in the box score, it's like, oh, this is a 7-footer. Good. They got another big. I think it's best to view him as a wing. I like weird basketball players. I'm excited about John Butler. If you're 7'1", you've got a 9'4" standing reach, a 7'3" wingspan, 7'1", 180 pounds, 7'1", 175 pounds. That's skinny. That is skinny. And I think when we see him in person, it'll strike us even how skinny he is. But someone who profiles as, someone who he shot 44% on half-court three-pointers, according to Synergy. That's from Sam Vecini's draft guide on The Athletic. 44% on half-court three-pointers in college is a dude who can shoot it, because half-court offenses are clunky in college, to be certain. That type of shooting ability, that type of frame with the ability to be a perimeter defender with crazy length, yeah, I'm into it. Like, two-way spots should absolutely be on guys with upside. Like, the Blazers are in a strange spot because they just have so little front court depth the way the team is constructed that it would almost make more sense just to sign like the Killian Tillies of the world, like a 24-year-old with NBA experience who like probably could play some minutes at center when you need him to, and definitely could play some minutes at power forward when you need him to. Like that like for the Blazers, like specific needs right now on this roster, that you could make a pretty compelling case for doing something of that to that effect. But I think two-way contracts should be used on guys with upside. They should be used on dart throws. And a 19-year-old with this type of physical gifts that you can just take a risk on, put them in your, put them in your system, see if you can develop them and get them further along. Like, this is a risk I am extremely in favor of. John Butler is probably not capable of being a contributor this year, but the idea of a two-way contract is to have a very low-risk developmental player that if he turns into something useful, a la Trendon Watford, you convert it to an NBA contract, you keep him part of the system, and you keep him moving. This is exactly the flavor of prospect I'm in favor of signing with a two-way deal. Now, the Blazers' other two-way deal is Olivier Sarr, who's like the team's current backup center if he was healthy. Like I said, like their roster construction is wonky enough that they could use like actual reinforcements immediately, but just like theoretically, a 7'1" wing, like a 7'1" small forward. My friend who gave me the scouting report on John Roberts said like a 7'1" small forward, and I just like, wait, what? Explain that one to me again, and got like the full scout. Like, yeah, a skinny 7'1" wing who can really shoot it. Sure, the future of basketball is weird and long. That is like the prototypical NBA dude who's everyone is chasing is like giant people who can stretch the floor and handle like guards and do all these things. This is the Chet Holmgrams and the Victor Wembanyamas, and obviously Roberts is like several standard deviations away from those two gentlemen, but the idea of these weirdo type of futuristic prospects, sign me up. I'm all in. Welcome to the squad, John Roberts. Can't wait to see he's getting jumpers up prior to a game and be like, whoa, that dude is skinny and tall. That's the Blazers' two-way spot. They were the last team in the league to fill their two-way spot. They waived a couple guards, including Isaiah Miller, who I was pretty convinced was going to get that second two-way spot. If I had to choose between a 24-year-old 6-foot guard who looks like he can defend at the NBA level and a 19-year-old 7'1" wing who might turn into something really weird that we've never seen before, give me the riskier one. Give me the riskier profile absolutely every single time. All right, in the third segment, close the show. Prediction time. I got some national predictions from folks, national media types, and then I'll share some bold predictions of my own about what I think is going to happen with this Blazers season. Join me in that third segment, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked on Blazers. Today's show is supposed to be a prediction show. It's just be a season prediction show. Blazers hooked us up with interesting news. Congrats to Nassir Little. Congrats to John Roberts. Welcome to the future of the franchise, gentlemen. But now let's do a little bit of predictions. We're going to squeeze this one into 8 minutes. So it's going to be 30 minutes of the show, 25 minutes of the show. The entire show if things had gone a little bit differently, but they didn't. So here's, I just kind of looked around at the sort of what these large national voices had to say about the Blazers, and I want to share that with you, and then I'll share some of my own predictions. Zach Lowe did an NBA tiers thing maybe 10 days back, and he had the Blazers in a tier that he called grasping at play and home court advantage, where the Blazers were in there with the Chicago Bulls, the New York Knicks, and the Sacramento Kings. This is teams that are probably not going to finish in that 7-8 range, but are just on the cusp of pushing to 7 or 8 range. And Zach Lowe writes that the Blazers have 45 win upside. Yeah, I think that's about right. I think the best case scenario for the Blazers season is something like 45 wins. I think they're right there. They just don't have enough depth for me to pick much further than that. And quite frankly, I'm not going to pick them to win 45 games. You'll hear that in a moment. But I think that's about right from Lowe. Kevin Pelton's statistical simulations, statistical projections that he runs on ESPN has the Blazers at 10th in the West with an average of 36.6 wins, according to Pelton's projections. The thing that's holding the Blazers back is that his numbers, and he does 1,000 simulations and then does an average of those, of what each team does in those 1,000 simulations. The Blazers are consistently a bottom defense, bottom 3, the 29th defense consistently in through the 1,000 simulations. They just look like a really bad defensive team with their current personnel. I'm not sure how much they can really fix that in the year. Obviously, they can finish better than 29th, but what is their defensive upside? I think that's what's holding them back. And Pelton's simulation, Pelton's statistical projections. I don't want to put it on KP. He didn't do that. He built a model that suggests that the Blazers are 36 wins, 10th in the West, just behind the Sacramento Kings. John Hollinger over at The Athletic did a preview for every team in the league, and he has the Blazers finishing with 36 wins and finishing 11th in the West. At 538, their model has the Blazers finishing at 38-44, 10th in the West. Very interestingly, behind the Utah Jazz, who, as they are constructed today, have too many good players for what the Utah Jazz want to do. Too many useful vets, Conley and Clarkson and Lauri Markkanen, and it's got to get rid of some of these dudes. Got to get rid of them because Utah wants to be bad, and right now they might be a little too good. I'm not sure they're as good as 538's model is. Famously, 538's model hated the Warriors last season and hated them into the playoffs. Grain o' salt. Over at Good Morning It's Basketball, my favorite NBA newsletter from Tom Ziller, he has the Blazers finishing 11th, just outside of that play-in range. The Associated Press's Tim Reynolds projected the Blazers to finish 11th. And over at Bleacher Report, Andy Bailey had the Blazers finishing 8th with 38 wins. That means that we went through 7 predictions from national media types, and nobody has the Blazers winning more than half their games. Woof. I just think that's the perception of this team right now. I don't even have any hot takes about that. I don't even think that's that far off from what we've seen, quite frankly. I don't think anyone's way off the mark. I think it's totally reasonable to think that this team could be competitive and in the 40 plus win range, no problem. I don't think if you think this team's going to win 43 games, I don't think you're stupid. I think, sure, maybe a little optimistic based on what we've seen in preseason, but you can be betting on their talent to figure it out and win 43 games and some injury luck here and there and blah, 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 blah. Sure. But I don't think the perception outside of Portland, outside of this market, off this podcast, is that the Blazers are good. I think just the national perception is this is a bad team, and particularly folks seem to be consistently worried about their defense, which all fair stuff we've talked about here on this podcast. But I want to bring my own predictions to the show. So I got a couple bold predictions I am going to share with you. I got 5 of them. Let's start with the first one. First bold prediction from your boy, Mike G. Rich, says the Blazers are going to finish outside of the top 10 in offense. Over the last few years, in 2018-19, the Blazers were 3rd. In 2019-20, the Blazers were 3rd. And in 2020-2021, the Blazers were 2nd in offense. 3 consecutive years as a top 5 offense. And then last year, their first year under Chauncey Billups, even before Dame got hurt, or he was hurt the whole year, but even before Dame shut it down. So December 31st, if you're just talking about the games that happened in 2021, from October to December, the Blazers were below average defense. They were 16th. Dame shot 32.4% from 3, under 33% from 3. He's going to be better than that this year. I'm very comfortable predicting that. They're just going to be better on offense this year. I'm not compared to what they were last season. But my bold prediction is that they finish outside of the top 10 on offense for the year, because from what I've seen so far in preseason, they look a little bit clunky. Preseason is not the only thing informing me. I just think overall, and shout out to listener Scott, who has been hammering this home, sending me this note several times. I think the Blazers lack a little bit of shooting, not from Dame and Ant, who are really good shooters, but the rest of the roster, they don't have a ton of lineups where they have elite shooting. Certainly not they have no lineup where they have good shooting at every spot, just because how much Nurk is going to play. But if you're going to play Nassir Little and you're going to play Justice Winslow, you're going to play Josh Hart, who's not a gunner, you're putting on, you do have some lineups where you have a minus shooting at a couple different spots, at least the way it looks right now. And I think that matters. And that is baked into my prediction. The Blazers finish outside the top 10 in offense. Next prediction is that the Blazers will finish top 5 in steals this year. They're going to finish top 5 in the NBA in steals per game this year. Season ago, they ranked 8th. I think they have better defensive personnel. If Gary Payton is the second is healthy and gets rolling and plays a bunch of games, plays 65 games for this team, one of the best steal artists in the league, had one of the highest steal percentage rates in the league, would have led the league in steal percentage if he had played another 200 minutes. Literally one of the best thieves we have in the business. I think the Blazers, who ranked 8th last year in steals per game with worse defensive personnel, under Chauncey Billups' scheme defensively with the upgraded personnel, this is a top 5 team in the league in steals this year. They're going to force turnovers for the first time in a long time. Under Terry Stotts' guidance, the Blazers did not force turnovers. Some of that was personnel. A lot of that was Terry Stotts' defensive schemes that did not attempt to force turnovers. They just wanted to attempt jumpers and get rebounds. They got rebounds pretty well. They also were pretty awful on defense consistently. The Blazers are, maybe haven't shown much acumen to be better on defense, but they have shown acumen to force turnovers more regularly. They're going to finish top 5 in steals this year. My next prediction is that Shaedon Sharpe becomes the rookie that plays the most games in his first season since Damian Lillard played all 82 in the 2012-2013 season. Zach Collins played 66 games his rookie year after he was the 10th overall pick. No rookie has that's it in the Dame era. No rookie has approached that number of games. Again, shout out to Terry Stotts, did not care for playing the youngsters. Also, 3 of those drafts in there, they just straight up didn't have a first round pick. Second round picks aren't going to play that much. That's the nature of the beast. Shaedon Sharpe's going to play at least 67 games. It'll make at least 67 appearances. He is going to play more games than Dame did. The most appearances by a rookie in the last decade for the Blazers. Book it. That's a bold prediction. My penultimate bold prediction. 3 players that play on opening night will be traded before the NBA trade deadline. 3 players in the lineup on opening night will not be there once we get to March. That is a bold prediction. Kind of an obvious one. The Blazers are the team is unfinished, or it's a work in progress. They have massive needs to upgrade the front court. They just have massive needs to upgrade the front court. They are in a position where Josh Hart is either going to, they're either going to have to pay Josh Hart and keep him as part of the plan in free agency, and lock into a long-term deal with him, let him walk for nothing, or trade him at the deadline to upgrade. He's good. He can help teams. He will have value on the trade market. Josh Hart seems like a lock to get traded, basically. Kind of a bummer for Josh, but I'm sure he knows it. He's a smart person. But I think he's a lock to get traded, and I think 2 other of his cohorts, some way, somehow, will be traded. A small side note that I didn't mention in the first segment, I do worry Nassir Little's contract makes him very, very, very tradable. He's good and cheap and young, and he makes more than the minimum and like right in that mid-level range. Those are tradable contracts, aggregatable, tradable, whatever you want to call it. I'm not predicting Nassir Little gets traded, but like that's the kind of money that gets traded. Justice Winslow makes about that kind of money in the $6 million a year range. Three guys that play an opening night will get traded. And my final prediction on the heels of all these predictions from the prognosticators and national media is the Blazers win more than half their games. I'm calling it now. The Blazers finish this season 42-40. They win half their games. I still have them pegged to finish 10th in the West, but 42-40 might be better than that. They might be up in 8th. So we'll see how it shakes out. But the Blazers win half their games. Those are my 5 bold predictions for the season. Congrats to Nassir Little. Congrats to John Butler. And congrats to you. You made it to the regular season. You really, really did it. The next time that you hear this voice, it will be because it's game day. Game day. The Blazers open their season on Wednesday in Sacramento against the Sacramento Kings, and Wednesday's show will be a preview of that game with Locked On Kings host Matt George. Come back and listen to that one. Get prepped for the season, and then it's here. We made it. You made it. I appreciate you for rocking with me all off season. To quote Adam Mares, it is now the on season. We made it. It's the on season. We are here. We're going to keep rolling along. We're going to have, game recaps. We're going to have shows 5 days a week. It's a daily Trailblazers podcast, for free on all platforms. Go get it and tell your friends to do the same. However you're listening to this, make sure you're subscribed. And then do me a favor, for real, do this. If you made it this far on the show, tell one friend today about this show. That's how podcasts grow, is word of mouth. Retweets and Instagram shares are kind, but the way people actually find new podcasts is their friend who they implicitly trust says, yo, I like Locked On Blazers, you will too. So go find a friend. If you're listening to this, if you made it this deep in the episode, go find a friend and say, yo, I like Locked On Blazers and you will too. Appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.